Hi everyone, I'm Chen. 大家好，我是崔晨 and this is A Day in Beijing. This is episode 3, the final part of our Forbidden City series. And this is the one we finally get to go inside of this palace. If you're standing near Tiananmen Square right now, press play and walk with me. If you're at home, on a bus, or in your sofa, join us too. I will do my absolute best to transport you there. In episode 1, I gave you the story foundations. How did Beijing become the capital? Which are the 3 dynasties you need to know before you step inside? Who built the Forbidden City and why? And in episode 2, we took a closer look. How the architecture communicates power, gender roles, and the concubine system. We also talked about the invasions and the scattered pieces of this palace across the globe. In this episode, the last episode of this series, I am walking through this palace. Well, when I say the whole palace, the complex is about 720,000 square meters, about 100 football pitches. So what I will actually do is to walk you in from the south entrance to the north exit, stopping at every significant building along the way. We'll cover the Wai Chao, the outer court, first. That's the public half, the grand halls, the massive courtyards, the throne room. Then we cross into the Neiting, the inner court, and that's the private half. And instead of just listing the buildings and telling you all the functions, I'm going to do something slightly different here. I'm going to walk you through a day in the Empress life, then a day in an Empress life, a day in a concubine's life, then a day in a eunuch's life. Same palace, 4 completely different experiences. Then I'll leave you the practical stuff in the end. How long do you need to cover the whole palace when you visit? What else to see when you're in it? And for the very end, where to eat after the palace. Right, without further ado, let's start a journey together. Men, your first Chinese lesson. Before we start, I'm gonna teach you one Chinese word, and that might be helpful because it probably will unlock the rest of this episode for you. It's called 门, means gate. You're going to hear it constantly. Almost every place we pass through has 门 in it. 天安门, 端门, 午门, 太和门, 乾清门. Once you know 门 means gate, you will start understand the journey a bit better. You pass through a series of gates, each one taking you deeper, each one with a name that tells you something about what lies beyond. By the end of this episode, you'll hear 门 and think, another threshold, another layer deeper. Tiananmen, the gate that changed the meaning throughout our history. The Forbidden City has only one public entrance from the south. Everyone starts at the same place. Everyone starts at Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen, you hear that word a lot. What does it mean? Tian means sky, means heaven. An means peace, means security. Men, as you know now, it means gate. What it means when it connects together, it means the gate of heavenly peace. But it wasn't always called that. When it was first built in 1417, it was called 承天门, the gate of receiving heaven's mandate. That name was a political claim by Eunuch Emperor, the man from the episode 1 who took the throne from his nephew, the man who built the Forbidden City. In order for him to prove that he deserved this country, he built Forbidden Palace. And that's why he named that gate Chengtianmen. He wanted to prove to the public, to the world, that heaven chose me to rule. This gate says so. However, it got burned down like almost everything in this history. And it was built in 1651 by the Qing dynasty. You remember by this point, the Qing were Manchurians. They just conquered Han China. Still consolidating the power, they renamed this gate Tiananmen, Gate of Heavenly Peace. Different message for a different moment. The first name says, Heaven chose me. The new name says, the fighting is done, peace is here. Two dynasties, two names, same gate, each saying what it needed at that time. This gate wasn't part of the Forbidden City itself. It was the outer gate of Huangcheng, the imperial city, the larger complex surrounding the Forbidden City. Think layers. The Forbidden City sits inside of the imperial city, which sits inside of the old Beijing. Gates within gates within gates. Empress passed through here, going to the Temple of Heaven, or leading troops outside of the city. Announcements were issued from the top of this gate. And as you might know, in 1949, the founding of the People's Republic of China was proclaimed here. For centuries, common people couldn't even approach this gate. It was a line between the imperial world and ordinary life. Proclaiming a new republic from the top of it was saying, this gate now belongs to everyone. Tiananmen deserves its own episode, and you will get one, I promise. For now, we'll walk through this gate together. Notice proportions. 9 rooms wide, 5 rooms deep. That's 95. 9-5 in English. And those are symbolism in numbers we mentioned in episode 2. Those 2 numbers are only reserved to the emperor. Even here, outside of the Forbidden City, the architecture has already started telling you who it was built for. Duanmen, compose yourself. Through Tiananmen into a long courtyard, and ahead you see another gate. Duanmen. Duan means upright or proper. The gate of proper conduct. I love that name because it tells you exactly what this stretch was designed to do. It's designed to straighten you up, compose yourself. You are about to enter the most important complex in the empire. Act like it. It was built around 1420, same time as the Forbidden City. And you might wonder, why 2 massive gates with courtyard between them before you even reach the palace? Because the gap is the point. Notice what's happening as you walk. Each gate narrows the space. The buildings close in. The sky you can see on the top of the palace shrinks. You're being funneled. And by the time you reach the next gate, the actual entrance, you feel different, more content, more aware that you are approaching something serious. Every meter was designed to change your state of mind. 600 years later, it still works. Every time when I walk this stretch, it gave me the chills. Today, Duanmen houses the Palace Museum's digital gallery, was popping in if it's open, but its original purpose was simpler, reminding everyone to compose themselves before the Empress' presence. Okay, let's keep walking. 午门 the Meridian Gate, the threshold. 午门 午 means noon, the sun at its highest, most powerful. The Meridian Gate, aka the central line or the central point. This is where you cross from the public city into the imperial palace. Your ticket gets checked here. Imagine you just passed two gigantic gates, and between them you walked a long stretch with the sky closing up, the spaces you can feel closing up, and now you pass the third gate. And now imagine walking forward, and then suddenly structures close in on you on three sides. Two massive wings extend towards you from left and right. The main gate blocks the way ahead. You're standing in a space enclosed on three sides, open only behind you. 38 meters tall. Red columns rising up around you. Golden roofs above, wings wrapped around you. Both impressive and intimidating. The sky shrank again. The height of the buildings are literally pressing you down. This isn't a welcome. It's a statement. You are now inside something much bigger than you are. There are 5 opens at the base of Meridian Gate. Middle, it was reserved for Empress only for 500 years. The 2 either side, they were reserved for senior officials on ceremony days. And the outmost, everyone else. Nowadays, we enter through whichever opening is available on that day, but for 5 centuries, only one person in the entire empire walked through that central gate. If you weren't the emperor, you were never at the center. That was the rule. This gate was where military victories were announced, and where officials who angered the emperor were publicly punished right here. And as you know it, colleagues will be watching the punishment at the same time. A very visible warning about what happens when you step out of the line. By the way, here's a tip for you. When you're in the palace, check whether the staircase on your left to the top is open. Sometimes there are temporary exhibitions and the view down into the first courtyard is stunning. If it's open when you visit, definitely go. Walk through this gate together, and now you're inside of the Forbidden City. Jinshui He, a good feng shui sign, but also a good engineering design. First thing in front of you, you can see water, 金水河. Jin means gold, 水 means water, 河 means river. The Golden Water River, an artificial river in a smooth arc, shaped like a bow, flowing east to west. 5 white marble bridges presented in front of you. In feng shui, the ancient Chinese practice of arranging spaces to harmonize with natural energy, water in front of a building represents flow, prosperity, and is a good luck sign. Placing it at the entrance was saying you will enter a palace of abundance. But it was also doing a very practical job in terms of engineering. It connects into Forbidden City's drainage system. In 2016, Beijing was hit by several storms. Roads across the city flooded, underpasses submerged, Modern Beijing with modern drainage system couldn't cope with it. However, the Forbidden City, 600 years old, stayed dry. And that's not a miracle, it's an engineering design. The system works on 3 levels. The first, roofs. Curved tiles channel rainwater straight down. Second, it was the ground. The whole complex slopes gently. The north is about 2 meters higher than the south, so the water flows just naturally. Third is the underground. It's a network of hidden pipes connecting back to the moat, and it all drains back to the river you're seeing here. Cross one of those 5 marble bridges you can see in front of you. Look at those marble carvings. Those bridges have been there since the Ming Dynasty. Isn't that mad? You are more than welcome to touch the stones, feel the carvings. That's centuries of craftsmanship under your fingertips. Taihemen, the gate of supreme harmony, the Empress front gate. Taihemen. Tai means supreme. He means harmony. The gate of supreme harmony. The official and the formal entrance to the outer court, where all the business of running an empire happened. There are 2 massive bronze lions in front. Let's take a stop and look at them first. You might see a pair of lions before in front of, Chinese houses. However, these 2 are the originals. Those are every Chinese guardian lion you ever see anywhere in the world, modeled on these. Now let's take a closer look, because this pair, them 2 are not identical. The male on the left, it has its paw on an embroidered bull. It means authority and power. The female one on the right, it has her paw on a cup. It means continuation of the line. The protector and the nurturer side by side, and once again, the glimpse of how gender roles were built into every single detail of this palace, even the lines at the door. This gate has a story I love. The Kangxi Emperor, who reigned for 61 years, started holding his daily government meetings right here at this gate instead of the grand ceremony hall. He was onto something. Less processions, less ceremony, more getting things done. Maybe there's a lesson there. 61 years on the throne, and one of his best moves was cutting down his own palace bureaucracy by just showing up at the gate and saying, right, let's go. Let's keep walking through this next gate. The grand courtyard, where 100,000 people stood in silence. After all the gates funneled in, the space explodes open again. This is the largest courtyard in the whole Forbidden City. It's about 30,000 square meters big, 3 or 4 football pitches. And it is empty. Stone in every direction, no trees, no benches, no fountains, no shades. And at the far end, a raised white marble terrace with a grand building looking down at you. This is where major ceremonies happened. For example, coronations, New Year celebrations, military send-offs. Up to 100,000 officials standing in formation, in quietness, in the sun or cold or the rain, for hours, no sitting, no shelter, fully exposed. That emptiness does something to you today. You feel observed, small, not because anyone's watching, because there's nothing between you and that building at that far end. No distraction, no comfort, just you and the distance, and the throne room ahead. In Chinese art, I thought it's quite interesting to add, there's a concept called 留白. In English, it means leaving blank. In ink paintings, Chinese artists deliberately leave parts of the canvas untouched. The blank space might represent mist, water, sky, but it's not empty. It's subtle. It's left for your own imagination to complete. And this courtyard does exactly the same thing at an architectural scale. The emperor didn't need to fill the space with gold or fountains. The void is the authority. You stand in it, you imagine it, and then you can feel it. Taihe Dian, Hall of Supreme Harmony, the throne room. This was a political center of the Ming and Qing dynasties. About 500 years of power in this one room. What happened here? Coronations, imperial weddings, naming of the crown prince, New Year celebrations, and Empress birthday, and the announcement of the top results from the imperial exams, which I will touch on later in this episode. Look through the doors first. Throne on a raised platform. Above it, you can see a dragon holding a pearl. What we call in Chinese, we call the dragon with a pearl 轩辕镜, 轩辕 mirror. The legend says it could detect a false emperor and the dragon will drop the pearl on his head. Think about what that does to your psychology. You're ruling the biggest empire on earth, and there's a mirror above your head every day. It's testing you if you actually deserve to be here. You might remember from the episode 2. By the late Qing dynasty, China had lost both opium wars against Britain, and we also lost the first Sino-Japanese conflict. The 8 nation alliances had occupied Beijing. The empire was crumbling. And Cixi, the woman from episode 2, who had absolute control on the country on the Qing dynasty for over 50 years, she was dying. On her deathbed, she chose the final emperor ever existed in Chinese history, a toddler called Pu Yi, 2 years old. In 1908, in this room, a terrified child screaming on the dragon throne. Pu Yi was so overwhelmed by the drums and the chanting and the hundreds of people in the robes kneeling before him. His guardian held him on the throne, trying to calm him down, whispered, 别哭了，快完了，快完了，快完了. He said, don't cry, it will be over soon, over soon, over soon. He said it will be over soon 3 times. Obviously, he meant the ceremony will be finished soon. But actually, the Qing dynasty finished after 3 years later. The whole political system over 2,000 years of emperors ended, and it became a famous folk tale in Beijing. Those words were an omen. It will be over soon, said 3 times. 3 years later, yeah, Qing dynasty did finish soon. And that's why there's a saying amongst us. Don't say things unlucky in the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Whether you believe in omens or not, when you're standing there, maybe just keep it positive, just in case. 中和殿, 保和殿, where the everyday ruling happened. These 2 buildings are behind the Hall of Supreme Harmony. One is called 中和殿. 中 means central. 和 means harmony. 殿 means hall. The hall of the central harmony. It has much of private, intimate feel to it. And this was the Empress preparation room. Before ceremonies, he came here to review speeches, review reports, calm himself down. And here is simply a man doing his, homework and work every day. Then you will see 保和殿. 保 means preserving. 和 again means harmony. 殿 means halls. The hall of preserving harmony. And it has two purposes. On special occasions, it's for state banquets. And on the royal banquets, every time when the emperor speaks, everyone had to perform 3 bows and 9 praise. Forehead to the stone floor 9 times, 3 rounds. And ceremonies, it lasts for hours. I imagine people dreaded the invitations. When it comes to the second purpose, that was the one that shaped Chinese culture for millennia. This is where the final stage of the imperial exams, 殿试, took place. Right now, let's take a bit of time and talk about the imperial exam. It was a system for selecting government officials based on the knowledge level. This tradition or system started in 605 AD during the Sui dynasty, and it ran for over 1,300 years. A farmer's son could study, pass the exam, and become a senior government official. Birth didn't determine your fate, knowledge and studying did. When it comes to the exam, there are 4 main levels. The first one is called county exam, 县试. Thousands of men from a single county competing for a handful of spots. Pass that, you will go through the province exam, 乡试. It was held every 3 years. If you pass that, you become 举人, and your life will change forever. It means you don't need to pay tax, you don't need to attend military services, and that means wealthy families will offer you money, land, and their daughters. The top 举人 from the province exam will come to Beijing for the national exam, 会试. And the survivors from that will come all the way here, 保和殿, for the final test, 殿试. And it means the whole exam in front of the emperor in the royal hall. And you know how big China is? Some of those final survivors will have to travel for 2 and 3 months on foot all the way to Beijing, to Forbidden City, to 保和殿, to attend this final round of exam, with a thread of hope that the exam will change their whole life. And this is why Chinese culture values education so deeply. 读书人, it means a person who reads. It's one of the most respected things you can ever be in China. It's not abstract. For over 1,300 years, studying hard could genuinely mean change your family and your own life forever. And it happened in this building, 保和殿. The inner court, 内朝. Now, we've covered most of the significant buildings and places and courtyards in the outer court. Now, let's cross a line from public to private life. 内朝, the inner court. First of all, you will see 乾清门. 乾 means heaven. 清 means pure. 乾清门, the gate of heavenly purity. This is a borderline. Ministers, generals, advisors, their access stopped here. The only man behind this point were the emperors and his eunuchs. And the huge chunks of the emperor's life actually happened here. He ruled in the inner court. The biggest empire on earth, partly governed from rooms nearly all officials were banned from entering. And I thought, what's the best way for me to show you this? I thought I could walk you through this inner court, but as different persons. A king's day in the palace, a queen's day in the palace, a concubine's day in the palace, and a eunuch's day in this palace. Not as tourists, but as someone who actually lived here. Same boundaries, but 4 completely different lives. A day in the Empress life. 4 a.m. every day, that's when it started. A eunuch woke him. First, the toilet. He had a portable, I want to say like a potty, a decorated box with paddled opening. And then eunuchs will carry that whenever he needed. When he finished, a eunuch will clean him 3 times with silk cloth. And then the contents were taken to the emperor pharmacy, where a physician examined them. Color, consistency, anything unusual. In traditional Chinese medicine, the emperor's body was a matter of state. If something was wrong with him, something was wrong with the empire. If everything normal, the waste was sent to emperor farmland outside of the city, used as fertilizer. The vegetables grown from the soil were brought back and served to the emperor. I know, a closed loop, and probably you can call it a circular economy on some scale. After his morning routine, he will get to 养心殿, the hall of mental cultivation. This modest building, not the grand throne room, is where most of Qing emperors actually worked from 1723. Morning court happened here. Ministers knelt, reports were given, decisions made. Yes, the emperors made exceptions, the ministers could enter. Then meals. The imperial kitchen was actually quite far from where the emperors ate. Food was prepared by a dedicated team, then carried across multiple courtyards in covered containers. By the time it arrived, much of it was cold. Over 100 dishes laid out, everyone tasted for poison. No dish eaten more than 3 times running to prevent anyone predicting his favorite. And the emperor, he ate alone always. But the leftovers, they were distributed to concubines as a form of saying, you were doing a good job, keep it up. Receiving dishes from the emperor's table was a status of symbol. Even the leftovers were political. Now we get to the evenings. We get to the selections. A eunuch brought a board with names. The emperor chose. The chosen woman was bathed, perfumed, wrapped in a yellow silk robe, carried to his bedchamber. The date was recorded to track pregnancies. Even intimacy or brocacy in this palace. Then he go to sleep, often not the same room as the night before. Partly is for comfort, partly is for security. So nobody could predict exactly what the emperor would be. And that was a day. For decades. A day in the Empress life. The Empress, 皇后, the queen. Completely different day she has. If the Emperor's life was about power, the Empress was about management. She ran the inner court like a CEO runs a company. In the morning, she normally received reports from head eunuchs about concubines, who was ill, who had misbehaved, who needed discipline. She oversaw everything, including the laundry rooms, the kitchen. For example, the laundry room. The laundry operation was enormous. Robes were washed, pressed, perfumed, catalogued, different methods for different fabrics, all tracked. Just the tip of the iceberg that what she would oversee every day. And then it comes to her mealtime. Her meals were served separately. She ate alone too. High quality food, but she didn't get the Empress 100 dishes spread. Hierarchy applied to everyone. The Empress was the most powerful woman in the Forbidden City, or the most powerful woman in the whole country. And she was still confined. She almost never left the palace, maybe once or twice a year for the major ceremony, maybe a summer relocation to the summer palace, but day to day, her world was just these red boundaries, the same courtyards, rooms, faces, for decades. And she was almost under threat, in some form, always in her life. Every concubine who caught the Empress' eye was a potential rival. Every pregnancy that wasn't hers was a danger. The title was never secured. The power underneath could shift any moment. Imagine if you were her. A day in a concubine's life. And then we'll talk about concubine. In the morning, grooming, dressing, doing the hair, doing the makeup, every day, preparing herself. Because today might be her lucky day. Today, it could be the day that the king finally noticed her. And then, nothing. If she wasn't called by the king, which was most of the days or most of their life for most women, the day stretched out with very little to fill in. Music, if she learned instrument, reading, if she'd been educated. Though the saying from episode 2 applies, 女子无才便是德, a woman's virtue is to have no talent. So many women weren't encouraged to read at all. So she might walk into the garden, the royal garden, if her rank allowed it. The royal garden was their entire outdoor world. They couldn't leave the palace, couldn't go outside of those red gates. Some of the women, or I would say most of the women, won't be able to see their parents and family again since the day they came into the palace at the age of, let's say, 11 or 12. The garden was the only place to stand under the open sky, feel the wind, see the trees. The garden wasn't a decoration. It was sanity for them. And then it got to the mealtime. Meals delivered to her palace. Quality depended on ranks. Higher ranking, that means more dishes, fresher food. Lower ranking means fewer dishes and colder and plainer. The food itself was a daily reminder of where you stood. And then it got to the evenings. Just waiting, endlessly waiting. Will I be chosen? For some women, the answer was never, not once in their entire life. They entered at 13 or 14 years old and lived out their entire lives in a side palace. Some died at 70, have spent over 50 years behind those red gates, those red boundaries. As now you can see, same palace, but different people living in it means completely different experiences. A day in a eunuch's life. And now the people who actually run this place, not the emperor, not the empress, the eunuchs, 太监. Before I tell you about their day, I need to tell you about how someone become a eunuch. Because it's brutal, and understanding it changes how you see everything else in this palace. Families chose this, poor families usually. A career as an imperial eunuch offered steady income, food, shelter, and if you were skilled or lucky, it also gave you real influence, more than anything else available to a boy born into poverty. So families brought their sons, sometimes as young as 8 or 9, to a hut outside of the palace. It literally gave me chills when I'm telling this story. The procedure happened there. Hot chili sauce was the only anesthetic. About 1 in 10 didn't survive the procedure. The ones who did entered the palace and entered a hierarchy of their own. Low-ranking eunuchs did the physical labor, cleaning, carrying heavy stuff, lighting the fires under the 308 water vats in the winter to stop the water from freezing. They did the work that made the Forbidden City function. A horrible nickname that other men give to eunuchs was 阉狗. It means damaged dogs. And that tells you what officials thought of them. But here's the thing. Eunuchs were the only men allowed in the inner court overnight, which meant they controlled access to everything. They decided who was where, when, and which concubine was available, which message got delivered, which door was open and which was shut. And that's why Cixi bribed them. They were the real gatekeepers of the Forbidden City, not the generals, not the ministers, the eunuchs. And some became extraordinarily powerful. Wei Zhongxiang lived around early 1600s, essentially ran the entire country while the emperor focused on his carpentry. And then you go Zheng He, one of the China's greatest explorers on the sea, was a eunuch. He commanded fleets of hundreds of ships and reached Africa decades before the Europeans rounded the Cape. And at the height of the Ming Dynasty, there were estimated 20,000 eunuchs in the Forbidden City. 20,000, a small city's worth of men who had given up their bodies for a chance at a life inside those red gates. Same palace, 4 lives. The emperor who was monitored in every bodily function. The empress who managed everything but could go nowhere. The concubine who waited decades or their whole lives for a call that might never come. And the eunuch who gave up their body to enter a world where he might gain real power, or spend his whole life getting laughed at and doing the dirty hard work no one would do. That's the real life in the Forbidden City. Shenwumen, the North Gate, the exit of the Forbidden Palace. Walking through Shenwumen, Shen means divine, Wu means mighty, the gate of divine might, the North Gate. And when you come out, turn around, look back. The moat, the 10-meter high perimeters, the golden rooftops beyond. You just walked through 5 centuries. You've stood where they stood, looked at what they looked at. Now look ahead. That hill is Jingshan Gongyuan, Jingshan Park. It will take you about 15 minutes to get to the top, and from there, the most extraordinary view of the entire Forbidden Palace. It was also the same hill where the last Ming Emperor, Chongzhen, ended his own life in 1644. His dynasty was collapsing, rebel armies at the gates. Rather than fleeing, He climbed his own hill, looked out over his palace one last time, and hung himself from a tree. The tree is still marked on that hill right now. There's something about standing on that hilltop, looking down at the Forbidden City. Knowing what you know now, I say take a beat, take a second, just standing there. Take it all in. Everything you need to know before you go. Okay, so this is the practical section. How long do you need to cover the whole Forbidden City? I would say 2 to 3 hours. If you want to also do the side palaces, add an hour or another 2 hours. And then there's another separate galleries / exhibitions I would highly recommend you to go check out. The first one is called 珍宝馆, the Treasury Gallery, where it holds more than 400 royal treasuries, jade, gold, jewelries, everything you can imagine. It's a separate ticket, about 10 RMB. You probably will need an hour, but this is where you see the craftsmanship up close. What the people inside the palace, inside those rooms actually used, wore, and cherished. It made the whole palace human again. The second one is 钟表馆, the clock exhibition, right next to the Treasury Gallery. It's European mechanical clocks given as diplomats' gifts alongside Chinese water clocks. One of the most finest antique clock collections in the whole world. I would say you will need about 30 minutes to an hour for this. How do you get to the Forbidden City? I think we covered this in episode 1, but just in case. Normally, you would take the metros, aka subways, aka tubes, based on, where you come from. You can use line 1 to Tianmen Dong, which is Tianmen East Station. Or you can use line 1 Tianmen Xi Station, Tianmen West Station. Those two are the closest station you can use. Or you can get to Tianmen Station, which is on line 2. You will come out from the underground at the south of Tiananmen Square, and then you just keep walking north, passing through Tiananmen Square, and walk into the Forbidden City. Do you need tour groups? To be really honest, even I create walks and experiences. Personally, I don't actually run any tours inside of the Forbidden City because personally, I wouldn't recommend the tours in the city. My guests have told me too many horror stories. 20 or 30 people folding a flag, a crackling earpiece, a guide rushing through, no time to stop and look by yourself. It's quite hectic. And even for Chinese people, you're not offending anyone. We Chinese people find the Forbidden City very hectic and chaotic. So if you join a tour, you might have the best time in your life, but you could also risk of being rushed and only getting the surface information. I say listen to these 3 episodes and just go explore by yourself. Take your time. Wander into the side palaces in the inner court. If you have any questions, search them online or send me a message. I'd love to help. And then last but definitely not the least, given I'm a foodie, I have to talk about where to eat around the Forbidden City. After, 4 or 5 hours of walking through the stone courtyards, you need a proper sit down. You need a feast. And on my Instagram, at A Day in Beijing, I've put together a cheat sheet where me, my friends, and my family actually eat near Forbidden Palace. Not the tourist traps, where actual Beijingers would eat in Beijing. But only one catch is most of those places, they don't have English menus, and that's where you find authentic real spots. On my cheat sheet, you'll be able to find the address, the type of cuisine, the price, and what to order, given they probably don't have an English menu and they probably don't speak English either. It can be a long day for you, so find somewhere to sit, order a lot of food, and decompress. 3 episodes, the Forbidden City is wrapped. In episode 1, the biggest questions: how did Beijing become the capital city of China? Who built this extraordinary palace, and what was he trying to prove? In episode 2, we took a closer look what the buildings are trying to say. The colors, the numbers, the hierarchy system, the gender roles, and the most extraordinary woman, Cixi, who controlled the fate of this country for more than 50 years. We also touched on invasions and how the pieces of the Forbidden City now scattered around the world. And then in this episode, we walked through the Forbidden City, gate after gate, building after building. And we saw what daily life really looked like through 4 pairs of eyes. The Forbidden Palace, a complex that took 1 million people 14 years to build. 24 emperors across 2 dynasties. Thousands of women who lived and died inside its red boundaries. Tens of thousands of eunuchs who made it function. And 600 years later, still standing, still breathing. I hope this episode would help you to see this palace slightly different. Whether you visited or listened from the other side of the world, thank you for spending this time with me. Next up, I would like to talk about the Great Wall. We'll take a deep dive on the incredible history, who built it, which dynasties and why. And then I'll help you to choose which section to visit, because there are dozens and picking the right one makes all the difference. Rate the show if you enjoyed it, leave a comment, DM me, tell me what surprised you the most, and tell me what you want to hear next. Find me on Instagram at A Day in Beijing, your conscious travel playbook for Beijing. Or come and join one of my cultural experiences in the city. This is A Day in Beijing. Thanks everyone. I will see you in the next episode. I'll see you at the Great Wall.